Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Please like, share, and subscribe. Well, guys, I attended the Lori Daybell trial today, the trial in which she is being tried for her alleged role in the attempted unaliving of her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. I showed up for the second half of court. I'm going to give you the inside scoop on everything I saw and experienced. Lori was wearing her black suit. It's a black suit jacket, black pants, a purple, what looks to be like a turtleneck or something under it, and her chunky black ankle boots. She wore those same items in her last trial in Phoenix for the unaliving of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. Today, Lori tried to get her trial dismissed. Of course, the prosecution shot that down and the judge said, no way. I want to let you know who was in the courtroom. Of course, Brandon Boudreaux was there with his second wife. She was beautifully dressed in a burgundy dress, fully made up, looking very coiffed and very good. Brandon was wearing a light blue suit. He's more, how shall I put it? He's taller. That's all I really want to say is he's taller than I thought he was based on the footage from the day of the incident where we see him on the police body cam. He looks a lot shorter in that video. He is quite tall. He is quite lean. He was wearing a pair of tan shoes, and he did not have any socks on. For some reason, I noticed that. He's an attractive man. He's very serious looking, and he looks, I hate to say it, but he looks exhausted. I'm pretty sure that this trial and this entire experience for all these years has really taken a toll on him. Detective Hermosillo, Ray Hermosillo from Idaho, was also in attendance today, and I have to say when I look at him, I can see that the trial has taken a toll on him as well. Not only the trial, but the case. After all, he was there on Chad Daybell's property when the children's remains were discovered. I spoke to a lady from Rexburg who is friends with Ray, and she said that he was so disappointed that Lori did not cross-examine him. He really wanted to talk to her. He was hoping that she would cross-examine him, and I'm sure she was scared to do that. You know, he would have socked it to her. There's no way she was going to win against Ray Hermosillo, sorry. But I do wish she had cross-examined him. Also in the courtroom was Kay Woodcock, that is J.J. Vallow's grandmother. She was there supporting Brandon. I give her major props for showing up. She's been through hell for years now, and she's there supporting Brandon and also letting Lori know that she's not ever going to be off the hook for all these evil deeds that she's done. Lori's uncle, maternal uncle, Rex Connor was there. Megan Connor was there. Colby Ryan was not in the courtroom. So court began for the second half of the day with two people being pulled from their crowd because somebody had said that they'd taken photos during the morning session, which is an absolute no-no. But guess what? Those two people, who were actually a lovely couple, they definitely had not taken any photos. I don't know how they fell under fire for that, but they were taken out of the courtroom and questioned. Maybe they had to show their phones. I don't know. But they quickly came back and got back in their seats. As I sat looking at the back of Lori's head, much like you see here right now, I kept thinking about how different our lives are. She is convicted of all these crimes. I'm pretty sure she's going to be convicted for this one because This feels like much more of a slam dunk than Charles Vallow's case. I kept thinking, wow, I'm separated from her by not that many feet, and yet her life is going to be so different. You know, what does she have to look forward to? She's already going to be spending her entire life behind bars. It's just, wow, you can be so close to somebody who's done really heinous, horrible acts to other people. It's shocking in a way. It's like sort of surreal to be sitting near her. And actually, I waited after the jury was let out and the session was called to an end at the end of the day today. I waited in there, and Lori Vallow turned around and looked right at me. She did not make any kind of facial expression, and I probably didn't either because I was basically just staring at her. I didn't get a sense of evil looking at her. I thought maybe I would. She just seems kind of lost within all that hair and behind those glasses. So we got closing arguments today, and Trina K stood up very tall. She's got the most amazing posture. She's very poised. She whips her blonde hair around often, and it's perfectly coiffed. She's a very sharp lady. And immediately she began with the question that was posed to Brandon Boudreaux on the day of the incident, which was October 2nd of 2019. Who would want to unalive you? And Brandon answered twice to two different people, Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. And Brandon had also noticed that the Jeep that was parked right near the end of his driveway, really close to his driveway, he noticed that it had a Texas license plate on it, and he told the officers that Lori Vallow had lived in Texas, and of course he knew that Tylee had a Jeep. As Trina K was describing the day that changed Brandon's life forever, because you know he is emotionally scarred by this entire saga, he was stoic. He did not react. He did not give away any emotions on his face. He was stoic and very serious, as Trina K described what happened to him on that day in October in 2019. Trina K kind of jokingly talked about Lori's defense, which is that there was no shooting at all, which we all know there was a shooting. We can hear the bang. We can see the damage to Brandon's car. The other thing she tried to do was throw her niece, Melanie Pulowski, under the bus. Maybe Melanie did it. And then maybe she tried to get away with saying, well, this happened, but I wasn't there. Nobody saw me there. We know I wasn't there because my phone was in Idaho. Therefore, I did not participate in any conspiracy to unalive Brandon Boudreaux. Trina K pointed out how Lori, back in June of 2019, was basically messing with Melanie and Brandon's marriage by insinuating that Brandon was gay, by saying that he had hacked into her computer. And Brandon apparently called Lori or texted her at some point and said, why are you spreading lies about me? Why are you doing this? And on July 11th of 2019, of course, Charles Vallow lost his life at the hands of Alex Cox. Lori Vallow is also a co-conspirator in that crime. Well, apparently back then, officers noticed that a gray Jeep, gray, green, whatever you want to call it, gray, green, blue, it looks like different colors and different light, that Jeep with the Texas license plate was in the garage of the house where Charles died. Trina was laying this all out to show the premeditation that went into this crime, and that it had begun back in June as Lori was putting herself in the mix with Melanie and Brandon Boudreaux's marriage. In August of 2019, Lori Vallow and Alex Cox moved to Idaho, and Lori's iCloud account shows searches for places to live in Idaho. On September 13th of 2019, Brandon and Melanie's house sold, but it was still pending. And on September 17th, Melanie Boudreaux, now Melanie Pawlowski, asked Brandon for his new address. So Brandon only gave that address to his ex-wife, Melanie Boudreaux, Melanie Pawlowski now. He gave it to 2 neighbors, as well as a couple of friends. But Trina K. pointed out that among those people, only Melanie Pawlowski knew Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. Brandon moved into that new home on September 25th of 2019, and of course during all those months, the plan to unalive Brandon was going on, unbeknownst to him. Alex Cox, who has to be the worst criminal ever, was looking for window tinting. He was Googling for that. He was trying to find a business in Idaho where he could get his windows tinted so dark that nobody could see inside the Jeep unless they were right up at the window. And that's exactly what he did. Oh, I forgot to tell you, there was one other person in court today that I think you might be interested in, and that was Nancy Jo Hancock. She's the lady who was dating Charles Vallow briefly before he was unalived. Nancy came in wearing red and black cowboy boots. She had sort of a short dress that was also bright red. She really stood out in the crowd. She was talking a lot to Lauren of Hidden True Crime. I passed her my information. I hope that she doesn't think I'm a stalker because I would like to interview her. So Alex Cox paid $200 to get those windows on Tylee's Jeep tinted. And obviously, living in Idaho, such tinting is not as much in demand as it would be in Arizona, where it is so hot and the sun is out nearly every day. Including today, it was very, very hot. On September 25th, Alex Cox bought a burner phone, and Lori Vallow was near that Walmart when he did it. They know that from her cell phone hitting off a tower there. They drove to Idaho Falls, and they also spoke with Melanie Boudreaux, now Melanie Pawlowski, on that day, September 25th of 2019. So Alex Cox used the burner phone that he bought at the Walmart in Idaho only for his trip to Arizona, the trip during which he made the attempt on Brandon Boudreaux's life, allegedly. He left his regular personal cell phone back in Idaho, and he left it with Lori Vallow because detectives were able to see that Lori Vallow had Alex's phone with her the entire time that he was in Arizona. She even faked a call, pretending to have Alex call her phone, both their regular phones, not their burner phones. And she had a conversation supposedly for 24 minutes. And this, of course, was her way to try to help Alex with an alibi. We know that Melanie Boudreaux, Melanie Pawlowski, had to have been the person who shared Brandon Boudreaux's daily schedule with Lori and with Alex. They knew when he got up in the morning. They knew when he dropped the kids off. And they had an idea of when he would return home. However, on that day, after Brandon dropped their youngest child off with Melanie, who was at a park, instead of going directly home, he went to the gym. And Melanie Pawlowski, Melanie Boudreaux, didn't know about that. So Alex was sitting, waiting in the driveway, or not in the driveway, but at the end of the driveway. And he had to wait for 2 hours because Brandon went to the gym. And Alex Cox really incriminated himself in so many ways because he used his personal account to Google things like projectiles and distance of projectiles. And Lori Vallow's not a very smart criminal either because she was Googling how to remove the back seat of a Jeep and how to make it more comfortable. Actually, she didn't Google the comfortable part, but that's what she was trying to do. Try to create room for Alex in the back of the Jeep so he would be comfortable as he lay in wait for Brandon to return. So Alex drives with his new burner phone to Gilbert, Arizona. He was spotted in Holbrook, Arizona. The license plate was picked up. And on the day that this attempt was made on Brandon Boudreaux's life, Alex Cox's burner phone kept calling Chad Daybell. So they were in contact that whole day. And when the police went to the Jeep in Idaho, they found a receipt from Arizona in the Jeep. That is further evidence of that Jeep being driven by Alex Cox to Gilbert, Arizona to attempt to unalive Brandon Boudreaux. Lori Vallow is shown to have conspired because she went to the storage unit place on October 1st, the day before the crime, and she took her regular phone with her, and I think she also had Alex's regular phone with her. She was the only person at the storage unit on October 1st, so she was clearly trying to cover up things for Alex. And Alex, on October 1st, Googled directions to Brandon Boudreaux's address, the address that he allegedly received from Melanie Boudreaux, now Pulowski. And on the morning of the crime, Alex Cox's burner phone used cell towers near Melanie Boudreaux's house. Then, by 7:22 a.m., Alex was driving to Brandon Boudreaux's home, and he would wait there for Brandon to return. On October 2nd, Brandon Boudreaux left his house at 7:25 a.m. That's when he dropped the kids off. That's when he met up with Melanie and handed over their youngest daughter. Melanie Boudreaux didn't know that Brandon, as I said, was going to work out, but a neighbor in Brandon's neighborhood saw the Jeep there, and it stood out to the neighbor because it was parked on the wrong side of the road, nose to nose with a white van, and the Jeep was running. The neighbor found this kind of strange and really thought it strange because it had the Texas license plate. At 7:40 a.m., Brandon handed off the child to Melanie. At 8:02 a.m., Lori Vallow has Alex Cox's regular phone with her, and that's when she does that 24-minute call to her regular phone. So they had timed this out, is what Trina K is saying. They decided that the schedule would most likely have Brandon back at his home at 8 o'clock. So that's why Lori makes this phone call to Alex Cox, and she pretends to have a 24-minute phone call with that phone in Idaho. Again, she didn't know that Brandon wasn't at the house. He didn't get shot at until later. He was at the gym at 8 a.m. Brandon got home at 9:13 a.m. And of course, Alex had been waiting for 2 hours. And then there's the neighbor's Ring camera capturing Brandon Boudreaux's black Tesla. And then we hear the loud bang from the projectile that was fired. And then that sound matches up with Brandon's subsequent 911 call. When they played the sound, the bang of the projectile in court today, everybody jumped up. It was like, everybody gasped. Trina K then shared a photo showing that the Jeep can look gray, can look blue, can look puke green as well, depending upon the lighting. She mentioned how Alex Cox, which is sort of funny but not really, he leaves the scene of the crime right away. He doesn't wait to see if he actually hit the target. It's kind of funny because he assumes, I guess, that he hit Brandon, and then he immediately takes off. Then Lori starts hiding the tire from the Jeep and the back seat at the storage unit. Chad Daybell goes with her to the storage unit in Idaho. He rolls the tire in. They both carry the back seat in, and they did this after the incident where Alex tried to unalive Brandon. And then Alex's burner phone is seen traveling back to Idaho, or it's detected rather, driving back to Idaho. At 3:54 p.m., Alex arrives in Idaho. And later that day, Lori Vallow and her brother Alex search the words shooting in Gilbert. Of course, detectives found, I'll call it, somebody told me to use the word nug for G-U-N. So they found nug shot residue in the back of Tylee's Jeep. They also found Alex's DNA. After all of this was shared, Lori got up and tried once again to call all of this a family tragedy. She even brought out her tears. She was saying that she doesn't understand why Brandon wants to pin this on her. She never did anything to him. Why is he just intent on wanting to make me pay for this crime when I had nothing to do with it? And again, it's all a family tragedy. And I kid you not, she started crying or pretend crying. Trina K made light of Lori trying to fob off the nug shot residue as hairspray or fireworks. Trina K pointed out that hairspray only has one element that would be found in the GSR. She also explained direct evidence versus circumstantial evidence. Trina described circumstantial evidence as the proof of a fact or facts from what you may find from another fact. Trina spent a long time on the whole notion of a conspiracy and saying that Lori Vallow agreed with Alex Cox and others, by the way, including Melanie Boudreaux, allegedly, to promote and assist in the commission of the crime against Brandon Boudreaux. Lori and Alex allegedly intended to unalive Brandon Boudreaux. And Lori promoted that and assisted that in the carrying out of the crime. I didn't say that very well. She helped assist in the carrying out of the crime, even if she wasn't anywhere near Brandon Boudreaux or his house when the crime went down on October 2nd. The jurors in the Lori Vallow case, this is the case of Brandon Boudreaux and the conspiracy to unalive him, they opted to go home tonight, so there will be no jury deliberation tonight. I'm wondering if they went in the room and if they took a tally to see who thinks she's guilty and who thinks she's not guilty. And perhaps there were one or two people who think she's not guilty, and they said, okay, we're not going to finish this in an hour and a half today, so let's just come back tomorrow morning. We can be fresh, we can have a discussion, let's go that route, and that's exactly what they did. People were pretty much planning to stick around because we were thinking that there would be a verdict today. This case, again, seems like more of a slam dunk than the Charles Vallow case. Sounds like Lori may have bonded with a couple of jurors who are buying her little baby voice. So this is sort of part 2 of what I saw in the courtroom today. So Trina K was going over the entire premeditation of the crime and then everything that happened on the day of the crime. and all the communication going on between the burner phone that Alex Cox was using and Chad Daybell, and what Lori Vallow was up to. So it was very important for Trina K to show that Lori conspired. And she talked about Lori Vallow helping by going with Alex Cox to purchase his burner phone. And then she let Alex use Tylee's Jeep. Of course, Tylee was long dead and buried on Chad Daybell's property, but nobody really knew it other than the people responsible. Lori is the person who rented the storage unit in Idaho. She also kept Alex's regular cell phone with her at all times while Alex was in Arizona committing the crime. And then, of course, she made the phone call from his phone to her phone, not the burner phone, but the regular phones, and held a fake conversation for 24 minutes to try and prove that they were both in Idaho. She also hid the tire and the back seat from the Jeep. Brandon Boudreaux knew right away who was involved. He didn't need to see Lori Vallow or Alex Cox to know. He saw the Jeep. He saw the Texas license plate. He knew what happened to Charles Vallow back on July 11th of that same year. So Lori Vallow got up to give her closing, and she walked up in front of the jury. She put her glasses on very slowly. She got her paper, her notebook in front of her. She was pointing out all the positive things that had happened to her because of this case. She said because of it, she's studied the law. She's learned so much about the law. She accused Brandon Boudreaux and the prosecution of intentionally distorting her life. She called this a tragedy. That seems to be one of her favorite words. It's always a family tragedy, and it's something that happened to her. It's nothing that she brought about herself, along with Chad Daybell and Alex and the others. As she's giving her closing, she's basically testifying, and she keeps giving evidence of her character. So, of course, the prosecutor kept objecting. The Judge Boreski kept saying, okay, you're not supposed to do that, knock it off. Then Lori does what she always does, which is she just keeps doing what she was doing before. She keeps reading the words that she wrote down, which are basically her testifying, trying to sell herself to the jurors as a really good person who had all these bad things happen to her. She told the jurors that you saw no evidence that I agreed to a crime. She said, I'm not angry. Like most people and most cases, no, she said, like most families, this is a complex crime. That was an interesting sentence. Like most families, this is a complex crime. I don't know that all families are as complex as yours, Lori. She painted herself as the victim. She said, I am no stranger to a tragedy. And then she starts crying. She pulled out the crocodile tears, which of course incensed the prosecutor and pretty much everybody else in the courtroom. She said that she was supporting her niece, Melanie, when Melanie's mother, Stacy, died, and in 2019. She also said that 2 or more people have to agree to a crime. There was no agreement. I love my deceased brother, Alex, she said. And she also said that she loved Melanie, but she was basically saying that they might have committed the crime, but she still loves them. So here she was throwing Melanie Boudreaux, now Melanie Pulowski, under the bus. And the prosecutor mentioned Melanie Boudreaux many times today. So she has not made it a secret that they are still investigating Melanie Boudreaux / Pulowski. And it definitely sounds like Trina K believes that Melanie Pawlowski conspired to unalive her ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux, allegedly. Then, of course, Trina K objected. Then the judge said, strike everything. Lori tried to say that Brandon Boudreaux had said that he would not stop until he got her put away, which I guess he did say, and he had every right to. She talked again about tragedies in our lives. My brother is no longer here. She's talking about Alex, so we can't ask him. Lori said that the law only allows for a skewed view of things. Trina got up to rebut everything, and she said, Lori Vallow wants you to think that Brandon Boudreaux had it out for her. But that's not the case at all. He didn't have it out for her. He knew what was going down. Trina mentioned that Melanie Boudreaux is the subject of multiple investigations. She once again said the conspiracy began when Lori Vallow began meddling in Brandon and Melanie Boudreaux's marriage. She also said that Melanie Boudreaux worked with Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, and Chad Daybell on this crime allegedly. Honestly, it felt like Trina K was pissed off. She was angry. You could feel that she was livid. She mentioned again that Lori Vallow held onto Alex's phone for days while Alex was gone with her Jeep. That, my friends, Trina said, is assisting with the crime. We don't need words, Trina K said. We have actions. Awesome. She did an awesome job. She's a rock star. After that, the alternate jurors were named. The jury left the room. Everybody went out. And then it wasn't maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes later, we saw the jurors leaving the building, and everybody knew that they were going home for the night, and they would start deliberating in the morning. So that's what happened. That's where it's at. And please like, share, and subscribe to Bed Crime Stories podcast. Love you guys.
When a family breaks apart, it is a tragedy, with the devastation far-reaching, affecting many people. I am not exempt from tragedy, none of us are. But what we learn from it is most important. Because of this experience, I've studied the law and the judicial system, and that knowledge will stay with me forever. When we experience tragedy, we can grow stronger from the experiences, and then those experiences are not all negative. You would think that often people in my position would feel defensive or angry, and from where I'm standing, I understand that very well. But I don't feel any of those things. You have watched me under pressure, under scrutiny, and even under attack. And I have shown you that I'm not on any of those things.
I'm going to object to character evidence and testimony that's not in evidence.
Ms. Daybell, could I have you pull that microphone a little closer, please?
You can't be upset with people who are forced to look at your life from a distance or judge it through a lens that's being intentionally distorted or being at least very limited. Like the lens the state has shown you on this event. There's so much more going on that is not included to your view. The law prevents some of these things from being shared in
I'm
trial.
going to object, Your Honor, to improper.
Sustained.
You have seen opinions formed by strangers trying to put together a narrative. I have shown you that basically there is no defense to what a person did not do or did not participate in. Other than what you've seen, which is no evidence that I made an agreement to commit a crime because no such evidence exists. So I'm not defensive. I'm not angry. Nobody has all the pieces to this puzzle. It is complex. Like most families, this is a complex issue. And like the state, I was not there. But there is no agreement, no plan, no gain. I am no stranger to tragedy. The breaking up of a family is tragedy. On June 25th, 2019, Brandon Boudreaux decided that I was responsible for his family tragedy. And I'm really sorry that he feels that way.
No, Your Honor, I'm going to object again to testimony.
All right, the jury is reminded that what is said in closing statements or closing arguments is not evidence, it is not testimony. The intent of the closing argument is for each side to argue what the evidence shows. Go ahead.
I did and have supported my niece Melanie when she suffered tragedy as a young child and during this terribly difficult time in 2019. We read the text from Brandon to me on June 25th, 2019, where he claims that he will never stop until he proves that I am responsible. Well, here we are, almost 6 years later, and I'm charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. In order to have a conspiracy, 2 or more people have to make an agreement to commit a crime. There is no such agreement between me and my brother Alex, although I did love my brother Alex.
And I'm going to object again, Your Honor, to testifying.
Sustained.
There is no agreement that was shown to you between myself and Melanie Boudreaux, although I love Melanie.
And I'm going to object again to testifying.
Sustained.